Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Mike here at Gamefromscratch, and perhaps you wonder what game developers make. Well, that's often a taboo subject, so when there's these surveys, it's definitely useful information. So that's what we're going to check out today, a survey on game development salaries. It's across the entire suite of game development professions across a variety of countries. And this is put together courtesy of ADLV, an excellent website. If you've never checked it out before, I would highly recommend it. And we're going to be looking at the salary stats in game dev. So we're actually going to look at the full report here. By the way, the raw data is available as well. The website is here, but let's just jump into the report itself. It's available as a PDF, and here it is. So this is the behind the screens, the salary stats in game dev report. So how they got this, they did a pool of over 1,000 respondents, all actively engaged in various facets of game development. 80th level readers and industry representatives from 80 level research panel were respondents of the survey. And then they kind of compared it to a couple of other data points that are out there as well. And then they broke down some interesting facts from it. So all the data is going to be in US dollars unless otherwise stated. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. So we're going to look at the lower brackets. So in the lower brackets, almost 40% of game developers earn less than $40,000 annually. Now that's a very misleading stat because there's not going to be a lot of game developers in the United States or Canada that are making under $40,000, but this is a global survey, so a lot of places wages are a lot lower because the cost of living are a lot lower. Now, the cool thing about this survey is they also broke down people's how they feel about the livability off their wage, so that will take into account where you live in the world. So the mid-range bracket, approximately 1/3 of developers earn between $40,000 and $80,000, and roughly 15% of respondents earn between $80,000 and $150,000, and 11% earn over $150,000 annually. So you can see a little bit of a breakdown right here. Now again, this is a sub-living wage in some countries and absolutely enough to live on in others. So that's why the ranges are going to be so massive here. And that's why it's interesting that they did break this down by region. So here you can see how salaries break down. So 11% are living good, 15% are living quite good. And then again, it all kind of depends on where you ultimately live. So a small group of respondents finds it difficult to define their financial status, indicating that their financial situation might be complex, unstable, or fluctuating. 7.7% of developers are facing financial challenges in meeting their basic expenses, suggesting they might be in the early stages of their career or living in high-cost areas. So that's another aspect of it. You might make $100,000 a year living in San Francisco and paying $4,000 a month in rent. So salaries are very specific to where you live, which is why the livability index is actually kind of interesting. So 6.2% can cover food expenses but struggle to afford clothing. Further up, there's a bigger group of 17.4% of developers who can cover expenses for food and clothing but find it challenging to afford household appliances. A larger portion of developers fall within the mid-income. 22% can afford food, clothing, and household appliances but cannot stretch to buying a car. Another substantial group, almost 25%, can afford all of the above, including a car, but struggle to buy a place of residence. Now, actually, struggling to buy a home is just a universal thing. I know some people that are almost millionaires in the Toronto area that are struggling with the concept. So it's, again, a very regional problem. And then 16.6% can afford everything they want, suggesting they are well-established professionals, possibly at the senior or executive level, or successful freelancers who have retained financial stability and comfort in their career. So you can see, again, a breakdown. 7.7% are having challenges, 6.2% are getting by, 17.4% are getting by a little bit better, and then we got the 22%, you get buying a car is out of their reach. Again, that's a little interesting because in some areas, car affordability is a really easy thing, and then other areas, it's quite expensive. But here, 24.4%. So basically, the vast majority of people are saying that buying a residence is actually out of reach. And then we got 16.6% of people are quite happy with life. Then we go down, breaking down the regional distribution of respondents. So the data for this, of the people that responded, 218 US, 88 Canada, 88 UK, 83 Canada, 52 Germany, Spain, India, Sweden, France, Poland, and then other as we go through it. So in the USA, 36% of surveyed developer professionals earned over $150,000. So you can see how it really skews by country. Now, we've actually broken it down by country, which is actually quite interesting. And the thing that I always find really, really interesting here is the UK always sucks. I've done salary reports in the past, and the UK earnings, because the UK is a very expensive place to live, especially if you're in London. And then the salaries never seem to be that great. But again, here is the average salary for a game developer is $101,392 per year in the United States. That's based off of 721 salaries submitted anonymously to the Glassdoor. And then in contrast to that, the majority of respondents from the UK earn between $40,000 and $60,000. Again, this is USD, not pounds. 36% of game development professionals from the USA have okay, that seems to be a bit of an error there. So the average salary in the UK is $50,000. So literally they're making half of what you make in the US in US funds. Kind of find that a little bit astonishing. And then in Canada, nobody earned less than $40,000, with 19% earning over $150,000, 40% earning between $100,000 and $150,000. The average salary for a Canadian developer is $50,000 per year. That strikes me as a little bit odd too, given the numbers that they've broken out here. If 40% are earning between $100,000 and $150,000, and then 19% are earning $150,000 or more, that's not making sense. So I'm not 100% certain. I think they might be more defining a game developer and then kind of getting broad with this one and including things like QA, entry-level artists, etc. in that category. I'm not 100% certain what's going on. But the disparity in earnings between the US and Canada, they don't make any sense to me. Just putting it out there. And then the majority of surveyed game developers from Germany received a salary between $30,000 and $80,000, and the average salary being $56,000 in Germany. I don't know enough about Germany to know if that's normal or not. Again, a bit of a repeat here of literally everything we just saw, but 36% of game development professionals have a salary over $150,000. In the UK, the majority of game development professionals from the UK have a salary between $40,000 and $60,000. And then Canada, again, with those really weird numbers. So 40% are above 100 to 150, 19 are above 150 plus, but the average is 40, not making sense to me. And then again, Germany is between $30,000 and $80,000. Spain, 38% of respondents earn between $20,000 and $30,000, and 22% earn between $40,000 and $50,000. India earned under, so here's where a lot of the money costs skew. So 54% of Indian game developers earn under $10,000 a year, and 15% earn between $10,000 and $20,000. Again, the cost of living in India, though, is substantially lower. That's why it's interesting to break it out by region. In Sweden, 20% earn between $50,000 and $60,000. Majority of salaries falling between $30,000 and $80,000. So from 2021 to 2022, men in this field saw a big raise, making an average of about $5,300 a month. However, women in the same job made less, at around $4,600. In France, for the most part, earn between $20,000 and $50,000. Based on generalized Glassdoor data, the average salary in France area is $44,000 a year, and in Poland, between $30,000 and $40,000. Very interesting breaking down the numbers in that regard. And then let's go on here. This is how salaries have actually changed in 2023. So China, no change. Hong Kong, okay, why are we only just doing Asia for that? Okay, we'll just move on from there. Leveling up, the impact of experience. So 74% of interns and fresh graduates typically fall within the earnings bucket of under $10,000 per year. So I guess you're grouping in unpaid interns or barely paid interns into that category, which is really going to skew the numbers and doesn't make sense to me. I would have just not included interns at all, because an intern and a fresh graduate are two very, very different things. Mid-level professionals see their salaries increasing, commonly falling between the $10,000 and $50,000 range. Among senior professionals, about 19% boast salaries exceeding $150,000. A good portion, 60%, still nestle within the $30,000 to $90,000. And the lead and director levels, the earnings landscapes become as broad as the responsibility salaries can commence from a sturdy $40,000 and rocking beyond $100,000. Again, I really wish they hadn't included interns in here, because that's really going to screw that number up and make it pretty much meaningless. And then we get into the C-level. Now, I looked at the data that they had for C-level, and this is completely pointless. There's just not enough there, and they're including it from too many different areas. And so, like, a CTO in Serbia, for example, might make $8,000, where a CTO in Canada might make $300,000 or $3 million or whatever. The CTO suite is pretty nuts. So we're just going to completely ignore their CTO data, because just think it's pretty meaningless, to be honest. Breakdown, so artists and animators, salaries vary from 10,000 all the way to 80,000 plus. A quarter can afford food and appliances and so on, but can't get a car. Another quarter can afford everything except for a place of residence, and another quarter earn enough money to buy food and clothing, but buying a household appliance is a challenge to them. Then we move into the creative director. We jump up quite a bit higher in the earnings here. Higher segment of salaries with 38% of them earning a salary higher than $150,000. So if you're in the artist world, you become a creative director. That's definitely where the pay is. And 46% of them fall into the category of can afford everything they want. So those are the people that have a house and whatever they need and so on. Software developers, 17% have salaries higher than $150,000. On average, the starting salary for a software developer is between $10,000 and $20,000. Equal amount of software developers in gaming have a salary in this group between 10 and 20, 20 and 30, 30 and 40. Okay, that's I don't even know what they're saying there. 26% can afford everything they want. 24% afford everything except for a house. And 24% can afford everything beside cars and a house. So interesting in that regard. Game designers, this is going to be a catch-all term. I kind of wish it was defined a little bit better. So 20% have a salary lower than $10,000. That doesn't mean a lot to me at this point in time. So a quarter of game developers feel like they can afford everything but a car and a house. And a quarter of them feel they could do a car, but they can't afford to get a house. So yeah, that is the ultimate report and the data refinings out of it. Again, they focus on a couple of areas that I find a little bit meaningless, but for the most part, it's interesting. If you want to actually jump into the data, it's correlated by the country, the breakdown, so you can see the various different salary ranges here for the entries. So here, for example, you can see Canada across different things. You can come down here, job, category, and the actual number of people making a wage in that particular job throughout. We can have it break down by country as well. Again, the C-level data is just so minimal that I find it kind of pointless. But then we break down by the, are you an intern? Again, I would have completely and utterly, so here you see, 74% of interns are making between $0 and $10,000. Interns are often unpaid. I think this is kind of an unscrupulous practice sometimes, but they're just absolutely screwing up the data by including basically a non-professional or a non-paid position into the data collection. That's one of the biggest mistakes, I think, in this. But if you're interested, you could just come in here, edit that out, and get your own results. So that's the nice thing about actually getting the data here. So ladies and gentlemen, that is it. This is the Level 80 salary stats in game development compiled in 2023. It's an interesting look at it. You're always wondering, what will I make? What will I make if I live in certain areas? I think what you could take away from this is, again, the United States is the place to be for earning a good career in game development. Though keep in mind, California is extremely expensive, and it's where a lot of the actual positions are. So, with great costs or great earnings come great costs sometimes. But let me know what you think of the salary stats. And if you're in the UK, is pay really that bad there? Let me know that as well, and I'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.